Hey, leader, I want to welcome you into the Sandbox this week for another episode of the Playing in the Sandbox podcast. I'm your host, Tammy J. Bond, and thrilled to have you join me for this conversation about the responsibility in leadership. And as leaders or up and coming leaders, as managers of other people, even just leading yourself well, there is one key responsibility that I have stumbled across. Yes, I have. I have stumbled across this one key responsibility that I could not withhold from sharing with you. And we're going to be talking about it in this week's episode as we get into you as a leader and what is that one responsibility. There are many, but one this week that we're going to focus in on. And I want you to give yourself an assessment when we get into the sandbox. So make sure that you have a pen and paper handy because you're going to be taking some notes. And I do have a little assessment for you to take as we dive into the key responsibility in leadership. What's yours? We'll see you on the inside. Okay, welcome into the Sandbox. Let's get started. I promised you that there was going to be an assessment. And as we're getting into the conversation around your responsibility, the key responsibility in leadership, whether you are a leader of many, a leader of a few, or a leader of just you, there is one piece that I believe is king of all responsibilities that we have as leaders of self, as leaders of others, as leaders in our families. There's this one piece that I have come across that really, truly was almost mind blowing to me because one, it's super simple and it's so necessary. And I believe that it is the one area that we get tripped up, that we stumble over, and we actually get held back by this one key ingredient that is our responsibility in leadership. And before I tell you what that is, here's what I want to do with you. I actually want you just hold up your hand 1 through 5 or write it on the piece of paper. You've got your pen and paper handy in the sandbox today. I want you to think about and rate yourself on a scale of 1 low, 5 high. Where are you on how clear you are with your communication, whether it's in your friend group, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your partnership, whether it's in business as a leader? How clear with your communication are you? How would you rate yourself? Just look at the last week as an example. How clear were you? And now what I want you to do is flip the script a bit and say, well, how would others around me actually rate me on a scale of 1 to 5 on my clarity? How clear have I been in my communication? Now, for me, I can say, I'm probably say in the last week, on the personal side, I'm probably at a 2.7. I know I said no points. So we'll just do 1 to 5. I'm at a 3. I'll give myself a 3. I can improve on that because I know that in my personal life, there's times where I push through, rush through, and I might come across pretty abrupt because I've got 47 different things going on in my mind. And so my family just gets to kind of get a little bit of the leftovers if I'm being real. I'm just being honest. I'm going to drop that right there. And I actually sent a text message this morning to the teenager and said, hey, I was a little gruff this morning with the way I delivered that message to you. I apologize. Here's what I'm working on, and here's what you can count on me for. Yes, friend, I do it to my teenagers too. I do it in my marriage. I do it in friends. I do it with my team, where I will think I am completely clear in my communication and then reflect back and go, oh, I might have been able to be clearer on that or not as abrupt on that. The other way that we can also assess our communication is how many times are you going back to repeat the same thing? How many times are you going to restate what you're asking for or what you need? How many times do you find yourself resending another email to clarify the point you thought you were so clear on? Okay. So that tells me if you can say, yes, I've done that. I did it 3 times this week already. Actually, I've only had to do it twice. You know what? Last week, though, was a beast of a week, and I had to restate my intention or restate my need multiple times. That means we're not being clear up front. And that leads me to what I believe is our priority number 1 responsibility in leadership. And that's this: clarity is kindness. I know, super simple, right? Clarity is kindness. When we are responsible for our communication, the way we deliver messages, and the way that our friends, our colleagues, our team members receive that communication, we're actually being kind as a human being and as a leader, because no one on your team, no one in your close sphere of influence wants to have to come back to ask clarifying questions of you to really get to the bottom of what you want, if they even know how to do that, because that's what we teach. And most people don't know how to ask those questions. But we also don't know how to set up our communication on the front end to actually be clear and concise and then seek understanding from the other person on the other side of the conversation. We drop it in an email, we drop it in a text, we drop it in a drive-by conversation, and we just assume they've got it. And if not, they're going to tell us otherwise. Or we change our messaging and we change the expected outcome, or we change the expectation within inconsistent messaging, which then causes us to not be clear and causes the other team members to not have clarity in what you're expecting or asking from them. So why do I think that clarity is kindness is a number one key? Because we are actually, when we are communicating with clarity, when we are communicating the the step by step even, and breaking down what you need and by when you need it and what that outcome looks like for you, you're creating a space where the person on the other side, on the receiving side of that message, friend, they actually this is the cool part, they actually can succeed. When we are not clear with our expectations, our by whens, or seeking to understand if the person on the other side is receiving that information the way we intended to deliver it, we are hindering and we are holding back our productivity, our team alignment, and our ability to really truly understand that we each know what is required to succeed in this moment for this task at this opportunity. So let me share it with you this way. When we are, because I actually have had this conversation, and this is why I want to pause for a second, because I've had this conversation with someone where they were like, what do you mean clarity is kindness, Tam? Like, they've actually asked me that. Like, I'm not communicating to be unkind. Correct. We're not intentionally holding back information or being confusing with our delivery of information or not setting clear expectations to be unkind. However, if you think about the kindness factor, that I am offering and opening up the opportunity for somebody else in the team or in that conversation to truly not only get, receive, retain what I'm asking, but to succeed at their part of what their ownership is that I'm saying. When I'm clear with that, I'm bringing kindness. And when people feel safe in the environment, there is that trust in the environment. And I feel that my leader is communicating with me effectively, or my partner is communicating with me for our mutual benefit, guess what? I'm going to be more eager to lean in and step in to what it is that I want, what they want, and to produce the outcome that we're mutually agreed upon. So it is kind to be clear, because ultimately, setting others up for success, we all win. And where I see this get twisted, where I see we go sideways with it or upside down with it, is the drive by. That's probably the first one. When we do drive by communications, it's the sticking your head into somebody's office, or drive by because I'm going to pick up my 6-inch device and I'm going to text you and I'm going to do a drive by on delivering a message. And we don't pause or circle back to make sure that we were clear. We leave people confused, or we leave people feeling like they don't know what direction to go, or maybe they do and they're going to go the direction that they believe that you said. And then it costs us more time cleaning up on the backside. So the drive-bys are great, but if you're giving a directive, if you're changing the direction for somebody on a project, or you're giving a new assignment out, I'm going to ask for you to circle back within just a very short few hours, and certainly before the end of the day, to make certain that it was clear. If you can't in that moment, because there are those moments where you stick your head in someone's office or you just got the drive by, hey, I know we were going down this path and now I want us to shift and we're going to do this. Or, hey, I know you've got this priority, but I now need this as the priority. Or, hey, I know this is the priority and here's how I want to change that. If we don't circle back, or when we don't circle back to ensure that there is clarity of the outcome and by when and whom, then we're actually going to spend more time cleaning up the problem, because your employee, your team member may go down the track. They think you just did the drive-by, you dropped it. Oh, it must be urgent because they just popped their head in. I got to get it done now. Apparently we don't have time to ask questions, so I'm on it. And then you get the product back and you're like, oh, wait, that is so not what I wanted. Or no, that's not what I said, right? Drive-bys are dangerous on many levels. I know that's probably a really random and not great explanation, but you understand the meaning of the drive-by in the office, and we drop information and we go, and without the clarity, we are actually bringing confusion. So clarity is kindness. Clarity brings not the opposite of confusion, and it brings opportunity for us to succeed. Here's how I see another way where we break down in our communication. And I believe as our responsibility as leaders. What's the quote that says that, the quote around, oh gosh, Tam, remember the quote, that are essentially, we're at fault because we actually think communication happened at all. Like, right, that's one of the biggest breakdowns, right? I know I didn't say the quote right. I'll drop it in. I'll drop it in a post in the future. But that quote is really keen, because when we think that it even happened at all, and I'm clear on my side, but guess what? There's 50% that I am still responsible for on the other side of the message I just laid out to people. And it's my responsibility to ensure that they've understood it, that they've got it. It's also their responsibility to bring questions. So let's go back to I'm just dropping my head into somebody's office real quick on a walk by, drive by, to just say, hey, this is what I need, or this is what we're changing up, or whatever the directive is. It's the person on the other side of that shares in the responsibility to put their hand up and say, do you have 5 minutes to talk about that, so I make sure I'm clear? And if you don't have a level of trust in your organization or in your team friend that they can actually raise their hand and say, hey, I have a follow-up question. Do you have 5 minutes to discuss it? If you don't have that, then they're going to go forward with misinformation, not putting their hand up, and the outcome or the product that they're going to produce is most likely not going to meet your needs. So again, when we stick to what is the responsibility, this one key piece of responsibility in leadership, and there are many, and I've talked about them before, and there are many, but this one, your responsibility in leadership is to be clear with the information that you give. It is a kindness factor in who you are. And your responsibility in that is also to allow your team members to ask you follow-up questions. You may not have it in that time. Let me be clear. When we do those drive-bys, pop our heads in, or we send the quick message off, it's usually because we're on a time constraint. One of the best sentences that you can add to any message that you give is, I don't have the time right now to discuss it, but I will at 2 p.m. today, or I will later this afternoon. Let's circle back. If you don't have that ability to be that clear because the sensitivity or the urgency is now, then you also put that sentence in. I don't have time to discuss. The urgency is now. Let me be clear. Here's what I need. That is direct, but in that, so being direct, you've been clear with what you need, how you need it, by when you need it. And that is kindness. And that brings a sense of peace to your team members to know you're giving a clear instruction immediately in the moment. And I want to back up to the assessment that you gave yourself. I asked you to give it to yourself, and I asked you to think about what would the people on your team say about your clarity and the clarity of your communication, conciseness of your communication. Do they understand what you give 90% of the time, 75% of the time? I'd be happy with a 75% goal on that for you. Am I expecting 100% every time? No, because people come into conversations with their mind foggy. They're mindful of task at hand or what happened at the breakfast table or on the way to the bus stop this morning with the family or what happened in the phone call that they got last night. So taking that into consideration, that we all have our minds full of so many things and so many thoughts going through our heads, we're filtering through that information. And when we have our filters on and we're filtering through what you're saying, and when I have the moment to actually ask the question, that's great. So 75% accuracy or pinpointing is great. I can work with the other 25. Would I like to see it higher? Sure. But I'm going to say I celebrate it. But then I want to ask the question this: if you're at 75%, what's it going to take you to get to 80%? What's it going to take you to get to 85% of clarity of communication with your team? If you're at 50%, what's causing that 50%? What do you want to change? What do they want you to change? That's a 20-minute check-in conversation with your team. It does not have to take long. And what that does when you invite that conversation is it opens up your team, again, as I've said, to one, building trust, but also to feeling like they're a part of the solution for where we're headed, not where we've been. And that's what our team members want. And that is part of that responsibility and leadership. And it's part of what leads to that clarity is kindness. We're having those regular cadence of check-ins to see how we're doing, taking the temperature. And our team says, in the last week, communication hasn't been that effective. Maybe they're saying in the last week, communication has been broken because you as the leader haven't been accessible. Well, then I want to know, what is it that you need from me to feel empowered to go forward and make decisions and do the work without me here when I'm not here? So I'm getting ready to go on a road trip right now. And I'm having conversations with the team about what they need for the week that I'm gone and the clarity of what my availability is while I'm on the road for our check-in conversations. And we will have them early morning time zone for me, later morning time zone for them, because I'm 3 hours away. I will be. So we're already setting up what they need so that they are able to succeed without me here to ask questions, to pop their head in and just say, hey, you got 5 minutes, or hey, can I run something by you? We're already setting up the framework in advance of me leaving town. Why is that important? Well, because it sets them up. We're creating clarity. We're setting up the expectations for what we all need. And we still have things and projects to move forward. We still have clients to take care of. Whether Tammy is on the road or sitting in her office, doesn't matter. We still have those responsibilities. So my leader responsibility is to ensure that I'm clear with what the expectations are, what the needs are, clear with them to give me feedback of what they need from me so that we can move the needle forward continuously and not stall out. That's my responsibility. So that's not their responsibility. That's my responsibility. And they'll tell me what they need, but I'm going to open the door to ask, right? So clarity is kindness. It's not just as simple as it sounds. Like, there is the simplicity factor of it. And I laugh. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. Clarity is kindness. I had to think about it when I heard it for the first time, friend. I'm not kidding you. I'd be like, clarity is kindness. That's like almost too simple. But as a leader, and our responsibility as leaders, when we are clear, it creates so much more opportunity within the team. And the biggest thing I can tell you, friend, when you are clear with your team, with all the things that I've outlined, with expectations and communications and all those pieces, and you're following up on the backside when you've delivered something or made it clear what when your availability is for those questions, because those drive-by moments, you may not have the time, right? I get that. When you've done that, the kindness that it shows to your team is that you respect them, you honor them, you're honoring the work that they do, and you're also setting the clarity of how you want to be communicated back with, or how you want them to engage with one another. You're modeling something beautiful. So clarity is kindness. It's 3 simple words, and it is a key responsibility in our leadership journeys to bring that to the table and to honor one another as we do and check in that 1 to 5 scale. Check in with your team, check in with yourself. The adjustments become smaller the more frequently we do it instead of waiting until a major issue has appeared. I have a team right now that I'm trying to bring together that has had a major issue that has been festering and festering and festering. And no one has the skill sets to know how to address it peer to peer. So we're actually going at peer to peer level conversations. And I'm asking some questions and clarifying with them what their challenges are. Had they been clear with one another early on, we wouldn't be having these conversations. But they avoided it, and now we get to. Clarity is kindness, and it helps us to not have issues fester that turn into something major down the road. I want you to think about that. When we are clear and we address it up front, it helps us to keep things from festering and turning into something major down the road. It's pretty simple when you think of it that way, friend. Clarity is kindness. Hey, I want to thank you for joining me in the Sandbox today. My hope is that you're leaving with new tips, tools, and strategies to navigate your personal leadership, your team leadership, and that next clarifying conversation that you get to have with your team, with your family, or even your teenager. Hey, third-party affirmations go a long way in today's world economy, and I would love it if you took the time to subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review, head over to wherever you listen and download this content, and make sure that you like and leave and subscribe. Leave a review and subscribe. Share it with a friend. Share it with someone that you think could truly benefit. If you know somebody that's coming up in management and they're on that promotional track and they want to see themselves raise up, I would encourage you to share the Playing in the Sandbox podcast with them, because we have a lot of tips, tools, and strategies, I know, for those up and comers as well as established leaders. We have something for everyone. Thanks for making time to grow into your next level of leadership, because we know that it's not something that you're born with. We know that it's a step-by-step process, and you took time today to grow into that next level of leadership. So I acknowledge and celebrate you. And I'll see you the next time in the Playing in the Sandbox podcast. Make it a great day.